All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's presentation about air quality in Clark County. My name is Olivia Burns. I'm an environmental specialist with Clark County's Office of Sustainability. Joining us today for the All-In Sustainability Leaders presentation series is Kevin McDonald, the Public Information Administrator for Clark County's Department of Environment and Sustainability. Today, Kevin will share more about the Air Quality Department and all they do to protect the air we share. Before the presentation begins, I will give you a quick overview and some tips to enhance your presentation experience. So here we could see different ways you could use public input. The top right image shows where you can click if you want to translate the entire meeting page and/or the live audio into any language. Select the language from the Translate drop-down menu. Closed captions are also available during this presentation. You could click the CC button on the bottom right corner of the presentation page. Viewers may call in to hear audio by dialing the 855 number. You may text in comments or leave a voicemail on that 855 number as well. Another way to interact is by putting comments and questions in the chat box next to the presentation viewing screen. If you think of a question during the presentation, please put them in the chat box and we'll review those at the end. The presentation is being recorded and will be available on this webpage you're viewing on now and on the Sustain Clark County YouTube channel. Lastly, if you have any difficulties viewing or hearing the presentation at any time, please refresh the meeting page. Now I will happily pass it over to Kevin to get us started. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Olivia. Give me 1 second, folks. I'm going to get my screen up for you for the presentation, so please bear with me. Okay. Again, thank you, Olivia. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kevin McDonald. I am the Public Information Officer with Clark County's Department of Environment and Sustainability. And today, we're going to talk a little bit about air quality, but I want to give you a little bit of information about DES first, who we are. The Department of Environment and Sustainability, it's about 120 employees, give or take. We're comprised of 3 divisions: the Division of Air Quality, the Desert Conservation Program, which you know from Mojave Max, and our newest division, the Office of Sustainability, which is administering the All-In Clark County Community Sustainability and Climate Action Plan. And we're going to talk today about the Division of Air Quality. This is our permitting body for Clark County, meaning businesses have to apply for and get approval of an air permit to operate in Clark County. Now, what businesses are we talking about? That's gas stations, construction companies, asphalt plants, even the casinos. Basically, if you have a boiler or emit pollutants into the air, you need a permit from us. In addition to being the permitting body, we also enforce compliance with all National Ambient Air Quality Standards, also known as NAAQS, and regulations as mandated by the EPA, the Clean Air Act, and our own state implementation plan and regulations. It's important to also note that we operate and serve Clark County in an open and transparent manner. With the exception of business proprietary information and air permits, our records and our operations are all a matter of public record. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at the Division of Air Quality. First up, in our monitoring section, actually, I'll back this up for a second. We maintain about 14 to 15 active monitoring stations throughout Clark County. Now, you look at this map here, the stations are strategically spread out to provide hourly air quality readings throughout the county. The data gathering instruments at our stations are meticulously observed and maintained to ensure they meet all EPA regulations. And then you look at monitoring staff like Tony here, gather and review data from the sites to determine the air quality index, or the AQI. Now, the AQI is an hourly reading that determines if our air quality falls into specific ranges. You can see it here on this slide. It's color coded. It's basically a measuring, a yardstick for air quality. So anything 50 and under is good, 51 to 100 is moderate, and then we get up into the unhealthy ranges after that. These monitoring stations that I just showed you, those are crucial to everything that we do. Now, moving right along to air permit writing and renewal. In our permitting section, we write and renew air permits for all businesses in Clark County. Does every business need an air permit? No. Only businesses whose emissions reach a certain level as defined by the EPA are required to hold a permit. Businesses such as, like I mentioned, gas stations, also dry cleaners, mining operations, construction companies, asphalt plants are just a few examples. On average, our permitting section issues and renews about 450 permits each year. Once written and approved, that permit defines the parameters to which the business must adhere to operate. Now, in addition to being the permit writing body, we are also the compliance body. We enforce compliance through a variety of ways, including source inspections and reviewing emissions inventories, as well as other documentation. When we talk about enforcing compliance, these are the people who conduct the inspections of construction sites, gas stations, et cetera, et cetera. Here, one of our dust cops, as we call them, Kat, she's on a site here, making sure that they're maintaining compliance. Now, on average, they conduct upwards of 7,000 to 8,000 inspections per year. I'm talking about the dust cops specifically. If their inspections turn up any violations, the responsible operator, also known, that's the person who's in charge of maintaining the standards of the air permit, will be served or could be served with a notice of violation. Now, that notice of violation, also known as an NOV, can carry with it a financial penalty. So I think last year we collected upwards of $1 million in penalties. Now, in case you wondered, where does that money go? We don't keep it. We keep a small portion for administrative purposes, but the rest of it goes to the school district to fund educational programs. So that's just, permitting and compliance in a nutshell. So what do we do with that? Now, let's talk a little bit about air pollution. Now, what are the primary causes of air pollution? Here's a partial list of that. We're talking about, fossil fuels that can be coal, natural gas, dust, car exhaust, factory emissions, smog, wildfire smoke, which we're pretty familiar with here on occasion, and also fireworks. We issue fireworks smoke advisories every year on New Year's Day, as well as the 4th of July, because you get enough fireworks smoke and that can cause problems for particulate pollution. Now, each of these examples are sources of air pollution, specifically what the EPA calls criteria pollutants. Now, this picture here, I want to give you just an example of what we're talking about when we talk about air pollution here. This was taken 2 years ago from our visibility camera on top of the M Resort south of town. We have I think 4 or 5 different cameras pointing different directions. Now, this one here, you can see it's pointed toward the north, so it's looking toward the strip. You can see there in the distance. Now, this was on a clear day in August of 2021. Now, just 4 days prior, this is what it looked like. Now, I don't know how many of you remember, but that was when we had the really bad wildfire smoke come blowing in from California. And this is an interesting problem that we run into here, because we can do everything correct here in Clark County in terms of our air permits and compliance. All the sources can be doing everything they're supposed to be doing to keep the dust down, keep the pollutants down, and then something that's happening 100 miles away, an environmental disaster, can blow smoke into the area and cause this, and then we get an exceedance. And if you remember that day, it was not a good day for us. So I mentioned the term particulate matter. That's what we're looking at here. That's particulate matter pollution. So what that is, it's a fancy term for dust, smoke, soot, mold, etc. And we monitor for particulate matter in 2 sizes called PM10 and PM2.5. PM10 is a larger of the two, and that's dust, pollen, and mold. And the PM2.5 is the smoke and the soot and vehicle exhaust. And you can see it represented here on this image, the size difference. The problem with PM2.5, well, they're both problems, but PM2.5, because they're smaller particles, they get deeper into your lungs. So people, especially those with breathing sensitivities, that can impact their breathing more so than PM10. And the other major air quality challenge that we run into here is ozone. So ozone up in the troposphere level is good for us. We always hear about the ozone layer. That's good for us because it protects us from UV rays. Ground level ozone is toxic. It can be harmful to breathe. Now, when we talk about ground level ozone, we have to talk about the fact that it's created by a chemical reaction. It's when volatile organic compounds, that's anything that puts off a fume. So fuel, chemicals, even vegetation puts off volatile organic compounds. Those combine with nitrogen oxides, and that's produced by anything that combusts. So think about vehicle emissions, factory emissions, fire, and so on. When those two elements combine in the sun and ultraviolet rays, that's a chemical reaction that creates ozone. So it's VOCs plus NOx plus UV rays equals ozone. And it's what we like to call a stew. It's not just a simple one for one equation. It all mixes together. And we have, when you look at Clark County, we have a lot of sunlight. I like to say that Clark County, our geography, our topography, and our climate creates a perfect oven to cook ozone. We're surrounded by mountains, so pollutants can settle into these mountains. We don't get enough wind pushing it through, and that just stews and cooks in the sun. And it's not just homegrown pollutants. We also get pollutants that transport in from other areas. Southern California, even from Asia, we can get pollutants that come in here. And just like I mentioned, the wildfire smoke, we get a lot of that comes in from time to time when it's coming from hundreds of miles away. As a matter of fact, in recent days, we've had wildfire smoke influence here in Clark County. So it's important to note that VOCs, there are natural sources of that. So like I said, anything that puts off a fume. So even an orange, for example, can put off a VOC. Now, I'm not saying don't leave today saying, well, oranges cause ozone. That's not necessarily what we mean. What it's all the other VOCs that really cause ozone, but we do have vegetation that produces VOCs. So that does combine, but not oranges anyway. So I want to show you a couple slides here. When we talk about ozone exceedance days, the EPA defines an exceedance as when over an 8-hour average, ozone concentrations are above whatever the EPA standard is. Now, this chart here I'm showing you, these are exceedance days in actual terms from 2003 to the present. So what I mean by actual terms is whatever the ozone standard was at the time. So when you look at this, you think, well, we're getting worse. Ozone is getting worse here in Clark County. I'm not trying to say we don't have an ozone problem here, ozone challenges, but if you look at 2003, we only had 10 exceedance days versus currently we have 16. Now, when you look at the previous exceedance days in the current ozone standard, which is 71 parts per billion, don't worry about the what that means. That's just where the standard is. In years past, it was 75 or 80 and above. So here's what it looks like by actual exceedance days. When you look at it with the current ozone standard, here is what our actual ozone concentrations look at. Look at 2003, that 10 now jumps to 62. So under the current standard, we had 62 days of unhealthy for sensitive groups or worse ozone days compared to today. So the point here is that we are trending in the right direction, but we still have some challenges, and we're actually working toward meeting those challenges right now because we are currently in non-attainment for ozone. We're in attainment for the other 5 criteria pollutants, but not ozone. So I think the big question for you and everybody else is, what should we do about it when we have bad ozone on these days? So the first order of business is you have to protect your health. And we always advise consult your doctor first for medical advice. If you have breathing sensitivities like asthma or COPD, you want to reduce the time you're outside. Schedule activities for the morning or late in the evening after the sun sets, because middle of the day is when the ozone tends to be at its peak. And then you can substitute less intense activities. If you like to jog, maybe you walk. But you'd stay indoors and keep the windows and doors closed and change your filters frequently if you have to. It's also important to note that when we talk about ozone or air quality being in those unhealthy for sensitive groups range. That also includes children and older adults. Even your pets can be more impacted by bad air quality days than the average person. Now, when we also talk about what you can do at home to help keep the ozone down, or not ozone, but air, just pollution in general. For dust, we want you to drive slowly on unpaved roads and don't go off-roading on windy days. Don't take shortcuts across vacant lots, and only drive your off-road vehicles in approved areas only. But other ways, like when we talk about ozone, there are ways that you can help us reduce ozone. If you have a vehicle, here are a few tips we like to give people. Reduce driving, combine your errands into one trip if you can. Don't idle your engine unnecessarily if you don't have to. Now, this is on a hot summer day, I get it, but one thing that's important to note, that if you're going to go to get a Starbucks today, instead of going through the drive-thru, maybe park your car and go inside and turn your engine off. I know there's a common belief that it's bad to start and stop your engine. That may be true for older vehicles. For more modern vehicles, that's not the case. And if you idle your car for more than 10 seconds, you may as well just park your car. You'll save gas too. Using mass transit or carpooling is always a good way to help reduce vehicle emissions. Fill up your gas tank after sunset. This is one I always like to impress upon people. Remember that equation that I talked about with ozone formation, the NOx plus VOC plus UV rays? If you wait until the sun sets, because when you're filling up your gas tank, that's putting off the fumes. If you wait until sunsets, that you don't have the sunlight for it to cook in. Keeping your car well maintained, so get it frequent oil changes, tune-ups, making sure the tires are balanced and pumped to the proper tire pressure. When a car is running efficiently, is burning fuel more efficiently, meaning it's probably burning less fuel. We really stress reducing the use of gas-powered landscaping equipment, because those two-stroke engines are major emitters of pollution. And also turning off lights, electronics when not in use. So that is a very quick run through. I know it's a lot to digest in very short order, but I am happy to take any questions you may have. So I will turn it back over to Olivia if we have any questions from viewers.
Yes. Well, thank you, Kevin, for sharing all about air qualities, different programs that help keep our residents and our visitors healthy. Now I will pull up the questions. Okay, so the first question is indoor air quality measured the same as outdoor?
That's a great question. In terms of indoor air quality, we don't monitor for that. We strictly monitor for outdoor air quality. So I don't have an answer to that. But I know when we talk about monitoring outdoor air quality, we use what I referred to early on. You may recall the term NAAQS, the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. Those are the EPA's health-based standards for monitoring air quality. And like I said, we are in attainment for 5 of the 6 criteria pollutants, the 6th being ozone.
Okay, thank you. That kind of goes into the next question, is how often does the air quality standards change?
The current standard for ozone, it was adopted in 2015. So I don't recall when I think the previous standard was in 2008. So, but with that 2015 standard, we didn't have to start actually monitoring at that level, I think until 2017 or 2018, but they do lower the ozone standard every few years. So prior to the current level being 70 parts per billion, it was 75. Then I think back in 96, but please don't quote me, I think it was somewhere around 80.
Okay. How does pollen affect our air quality?
If you're like me with allergies, it affects it a lot. Pollen is not a criteria pollutant, so we don't monitor for that. Our friends at UNLV's pollen program do, and we occasionally post their site on our social media. So you can, if you want to track the pollen, you can check their site. They monitor for that every day. But it does, like I said, as somebody who suffers from allergies, I know it affects it a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And our social media is at Sustain Clark County. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
I actually have a screen for that if you might, if you want me to share.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll pull that up for you.
Sounds
So
good.
so people can follow along. Um, if I can get this up for you. So thank you again. This is my contact information. If anybody has any further questions for me, please feel free to reach out. That's my email address and my direct phone line. I'm happy to answer any of your questions. If you're shy, you can always just follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And Facebook, just look for Sustain Clark County. Twitter is Sustain Clark CTY, and on Instagram, Sustain Clark County. There are a couple other ways that you can keep in touch for air quality. You can go to enviroflash.com and sign up for daily emails or text messages, and also the Air Now app. If you go to your app store, or I think it's a Google store, and download the Air Now app, it's free. You can get real-time air quality data right there on your phone. It's a great, handy air quality app. And our friends out in the Northeast were really familiar with it last couple weeks ago. And then if you go to our website, our monitoring website for daily information, this map here, that is from the monitoring site, which is, it's a little bit of a long URL, desaqmonitoring.clarkcountynv.gov/AgileAirWeb. You can get it there. And we post these forecasts daily on social media with a link, so you can just jump right to that as well. But I'm a big fan of that Air Now app. I think if you download that, if you're really curious, I think you'll like that too. Our forecasts go to that daily. And if we ever have air quality alerts or advisories, which I should point out that we are currently under a seasonal smoke and ozone, wildfire smoke and ozone advisory that went into effect April 1st and will run until September 30th, because this is our ozone season. We added the smoke advisory the last couple of years because, quite frankly, because of climate change and extreme heat and drought conditions, wildfires are becoming a more common occurrence, as we've seen here and elsewhere. And we just want to keep people informed so they can make their best decisions.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. Everyone could sign up and stay updated with any of these resources here. And we still have just a few more questions before we end the presentation for today. Is there a link between poor air quality and worse health outcomes from COVID-19?
It's interesting. I haven't looked into current studies, and I'm not sure if we have anybody studying that here. I know that there's been some discussion around that. The only thing I know about during COVID in a lot of other parts around the world, or places around the world, because of the shutdowns, air quality improved vastly in a lot of places where they have heavy industry. Here we only saw a slight decrease in particulate pollution in like April of 2020, right at the beginning. In terms of, I'm not sure if the questions is about people with the lung issues as a result of COVID. I would assume that if you have breathing sensitivities, long-term COVID, that poor air quality would impact that the same way it does people with asthma and COPD.
Thank you for answering that, Kevin. Can you clarify if the app, is it EPA Air Now?
Yes.
Okay.
It's EPA's app, but they use our data. And you can look at any air quality from any jurisdiction in the world too, if you choose.
Okay, great. We were just making sure we're downloading the correct one. And then the last question, unless anyone has any more that they want to put in the chat, is will there always be an air pollution problem?
Well, I think as long as you have industry and vehicles and gas powered vehicles and anything puts out greenhouse gas emissions, we're going to have some air pollution. I think that the challenge is we want to minimize that. That's why we issue the air permits, so that industry just can't pollute with reckless abandon. We recognize that companies have to work. So asphalt plants have to have some emissions. You're going to have some dust kicked up at construction sites, but we take extra care with those sources to make sure they minimize those. One way we do that with our dust group is we host monthly dust classes for the workers on construction sites, so they can come and learn best dust mitigation practices. It's the obligatory teaching them how to fish rather than giving them fish. So that way they can wet down the dirt so it doesn't kick up too much dust, and other dust mitigation efforts. That way we don't have to come out there when we get phone calls from our dust hotline and people and then they get a violation, have to pay a penalty for that.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing all about air quality. There's no more questions left, but the audience, feel free to leave any at the registration page and we could answer those further on, or contact us on social media, or Kevin's contact information that he shared with everybody. And feel free to scroll down this page past the live stream, and you'll see other events and campaigns that you could participate in that relate to sustainability and climate action. And you're able to review the recording after this as well. And you could share it around and on our social medias. But other than that, we appreciate it again. So thank you guys, everyone, and I hope you have a good Wednesday.
Thank you, everyone.